On visiting Six Flags Great Adventure or Hersheypark in the near future, stay tuned and watch this whole video as you will find out whether Six Flags Great Adventure or Hersheypark is more worth your time and money. Let's get started. First, let's start with a very controversial matchup, that being Nitro versus Candymonium. And the reason this is controversial is because many people in the roller coaster community either think Nitro is a great hypercoaster with a lot of airtime or is terrible with zero airtime. And I am in the first category where I think that Nitro has a load of airtime. Now, I will admit, Candymonium has the stronger airtime, as the first half on Candymonium features much stronger airtime than the first half of Nitro. But where Nitro does come ahead is, while Candymonium sort of dies in its second half, not delivering a ton of airtime and forces, Nitro just has back-to-back airtime hills and a fairly forceful double helix. So with all that put into consideration, that is why I personally believe Nitro to be the better ride, and that's why Six Flags Great Adventure will be getting 3 points to start off. Let's move to both parks' kiddie coasters. Now this is a very easy matchup as literally these two rides are basically the exact same coaster, and for that reason I will be giving both parks 1 point for their kiddie coasters, making Six Flags Great Adventure in the lead 4-1. On to both parks' mine train coasters. This is a clear win for Six Flags Great Adventure because Runaway Mine Train has the much more scenic layout than Trailblazer and uses the terrain much better. And also with the Runaway Mine Train, both of these attractions are a little shaky. At least Runaway Mine Train does have some redeeming qualities, including a legit pop of airtime later on in the ride before you hit that turn over the water. And for that reason, I will be giving Six Flags Great Adventure an extra 1 point for Runaway Mine Train, making the score 5-1. So let's move on to both parks' extreme launch coasters, that being Kingda Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure versus Storm Runner at Hersheypark. Now, in my opinion, Storm Runner is the clear winner here. One, the restraints are more comfortable, as Storm Runner features straps that go over your shoulders, while Kingda Ka features hard plastic that goes over your shoulders. Now, the restraints on both these rides aren't ideal, as when you're entering the top hats on both coasters, and keep in mind that Kingda Ka is the second fastest coaster in the world, and because of that, at least for Kingda Ka and of lesser effect on Storm Runner, your thighs will be absolutely destroyed when entering that top hat. That's just because on Kingda Ka you're heading 128 miles per hour, and the restraint will easily crush your thighs from that. Other than that, Kingda Ka is a solid ride, but the main reason I give Storm Runner the edge is just because it has a much more complete layout, and even though both these rides are short, Storm Runner is much more complete because you have 3 more grade inversions plus some extra turns into the brake run. So because of that more complete ride experience, I will be giving Storm Runner an extra 3 points for Hersheypark, making the score 5-4. So moving on to both parks' inverted coasters, we have Batman the Ride at Six Flags Great Adventure versus Great Bear at Hersheypark. Now, even though Great Bear does have the more unique and scenic layout than Batman the Ride, I'm sorry, you just can't beat the good old intense layout of a Batman the Ride club. Because even though Great Bear is a fun and solid inverted coaster, Batman the Ride is just so much more intense than Great Bear, and because of that, I will be giving Six Flags Great Adventure an extra 2 points for Batman the Ride, making the score 7-4. Now let's move on to both parks' large looping coasters, that being Medusa at Six Flags Great Adventure versus Fahrenheit at Hersheypark. Now in my opinion, there is a clear winner here, and that being Fahrenheit. Because the main problem with Medusa is that 1, it's not as forceful as the sit-down counterparts, and 2, this layout is very overused by plenty of B&Ms. So because of that, Medusa just feels very samey and just kind of boring. Not that I'm saying it is a boring ride, but it just feels boring, especially when you compare it to Fahrenheit, as that ride is so much more unique, as it features a vertical lift hill and beyond vertical drop, plenty of extreme airtime moments, and much more forceful inversions, and for that, I will be giving Fahrenheit an extra 2 points for Hersheypark, making the score 7-6. So moving on to both parks' Wild Mouse coasters, we have the Dark Knight coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure versus Wild Mouse at Hersheypark. Now between these two coasters, there is a clear winner, as Wild Mouse is just your standard Wild Mouse, nothing special. And as for layout, the Dark Knight coaster is nearly identical to Wild Mouse at Hersheypark, but at least for the Dark Knight coaster, it actually has some Batman theming relating to the Dark Knight movie. And the theming is nothing like crazy for a Six Flags park, but it's enough to give this ride a clear advantage over Wild Mouse, so that's why I will be giving Six Flags Great Adventure an extra 1 point for the Dark Knight coaster. Now let's move on to Six Flags Great Adventure's unique coasters. Let's start off with El Toro, which is the park's massive wooden coaster that I sadly never got to ride when I went to Six Flags Great Adventure due to the ride's many recent accidents. But other than that, I have heard nothing but good things about El Toro, and because of that, I will be giving it 3 points for Six Flags Great Adventure. And then let's move on to Jersey Devil, which is the park's single rail coaster. And like El Toro, I didn't get to ride this when I went to Six Flags Great Adventure due to it being closed for maintenance, but it looks to be a seriously amazing ride. And though it doesn't seem to be as good as other RMC coasters, it definitely looks to be a very good ride, and for that I will be giving Jersey Devil an extra 3 points for Six Flags Great Adventure. And then moving on to Green Lantern, which is the park's stand-up coaster. And this isn't one of the worst stand-up coasters, but it is far from the best stand-up coaster. Because it's not super uncomfortable and it delivers a very forceful layout. So for that, I will be giving Green Lantern an extra 2 points for Six Flags Great Adventure. And then we have the park's other kiddie coaster, that being Harley Quinn Crazy Train, which I will be giving an extra 1 point for. You have Skull Mountain, the park's indoor family coaster. And even though this ride has a very good looking facade on the outside, it's basically a coaster in the box on the inside, and though the first drop is a solid first drop, the rest of the ride isn't super special, and because of that, I will be giving Skull Mountain an extra 1 point for Six Flags Great Adventure. And then we have Superman Ultimate Flight, the park's B&M flying coaster. And this thing is a short ride, but it does deliver some very forceful elements and some scenic turns. Like, for example, that pretzel loop, which isn't nearly as good as, for example, Manta's pretzel loop at SeaWorld Orlando, but it's still easily the highlight of the ride. And for that, I will be giving Superman Ultimate Flight an extra 2 points for Six Flags Great Adventure. And then we have the Joker, which is the park's 40 free spin coaster. And what makes this thing unique is that the seats will flip while you're riding. And to be honest, it does feel more like a flat ride than a roller coaster, but it's still a fun and very unique experience. So for that, I will be giving the Joker an extra 1 point, making Six Flags Great Adventure be in the lead 21-6. On Hersheypark's unique coasters, let's start off with Jolly Rancher Remix, which is the park's Vekoma boomerang that goes forwards and backwards through 3 different inversions. And this thing, I never got to ride it as Jolly Rancher Remix, but I have ridden it, and it is a solid boomerang that is fairly smooth. And the Jolly Rancher theming and all this different smells during the ride, I guess would add to the experience. But because this ride is nothing special, I'll be giving that an extra 1 point for Hersheypark. Then we have Super Duper Looper, which was actually the first ever looping coaster on the East Coast. And other than the loop, it's a pretty boring ride, though it is a fairly scenic ride using Hersheypark's terrain to its advantage. But because it's kind of boring other than that loop, I will be giving the park an extra 1 point for Super Duper Looper. Then moving on to Laugh Track, which I personally haven't ridden due to long lines, but it is the park's indoor spinning coaster, and considering these spinning coasters can give pretty forceful rides, plus this ride is indoors with a good amount of theming, it seems to be a pretty good family coaster considering the lines it's gotten at Hersheypark recently, and because of that, I will be giving Laugh Track an additional 1 point for Hersheypark. Then let's move on to arguably the park's best attraction, that being Sky Rush. Now, I also personally haven't ridden Sky Rush due to it being closed due to a cable snap on my last visit, but I've heard nothing but good things about this ride other than the restraints, which I've heard to be hit or miss. Like, some people say they're painful, some people don't say they're painful. Because this ride looks to have an amazing, intense layout, I will be giving it an extra 3 points. Let's move on to Hersheypark's most recent coaster, that being Wildcat's Revenge. Now, this is a conversion of their old Wildcat coaster. And now, I haven't ridden Wildcat's Revenge, though I did get a chance to ride the original Wildcat, and Wildcat's Revenge should be an upgrade from that ride. And I've heard nothing but good things about Wildcat's Revenge, so that's why I will be giving it an extra 3 points for Hersheypark. Then moving on to the park's racing wooden coaster, we have Lightning Racer, which is one of those coasters. It's not the most intense GCI out there, but it's still a ton of fun, and the racing aspect does add a lot to the ride experience. So because of that, I will be giving Lightning Racer an extra 2 points for Hersheypark. Then you also have the park's oldest operating coaster, that being Comet, which it is a smaller wooden coaster. It's still able to give a good solid long layout, and a couple of the hills and drops do offer some pretty decent airtime. So for that, I will be giving Comet an extra 2 points for Hersheypark, making the score 21-19. Moving on to Six Flags Great Adventure's unique flat rides and dark rides, let's start with the world's tallest drop tower, Zumanjaro Drop-a-Doom. Now this thing is absolutely crazy as it reaches heights of 415 feet and speeds of 95 miles per hour, and you get a ton of weightlessness falling down, and is definitely a must-do ride at Six Flags Great Adventure. And then you have Justice League Battle for Metropolis, the park's dark ride. And this is a surprisingly good dark ride, as when I rode it, all the targets and scenes and animatronics and everything were working perfectly fine, which I can't say the same thing about other dark rides, including Universal dark rides, which is definitely a feat on Six Flags' part. And then you also have the park swing ride, which is called Skyscreamer. And this thing will take you over 200 feet above the park, giving you great views. And this thing is so freaky. Just being suspended at that high, only by chains in that small of a seat, it is pretty terrifying to say the least. And then you also have Cyborg Cyberspin, which is basically a top spin on steroids, as it will invert you on so many different axes of rotation, while a top spin just does normal flips. And then you also have the park's Frisbee, which is called Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth, and this thing is one of the tallest and fastest Frisbees out there, and definitely gives some great positive G's on the downswings and some great weightlessness at its max height, and is definitely a super fun attraction that is definitely a must-do at Six Flags Great Adventure. And for all of these flat rides, I will be giving the park an extra 10 points, making the score 31-19. Hersheypark's unique flat rides and dark rides. We have the Hershey's Triple Tower, which is a series of 3 different drop towers, each varying in height, but they each give a decently forceful upwards launch and then some airtime when you reach the top. And at least for the Hershey's Triple Tower, along with that, you do get a decently forceful drop from its max height of 189 feet. And because of that, I will be giving Hersheypark an extra 3 points for the Hershey Triple Tower. And then you also have the park's Pendulum Ride, which is the Claw, which is definitely a smaller, more family-friendly attraction, as it doesn't swing beyond 90 degrees, and is generally a more tame frisbee compared to other frisbees, like the aforementioned Wonder Woman Lasso of Truth. And because of that, I will be giving the park an extra 1 point for the Claw. Then you also have Mixed, which is the park's newest flat ride. And on this flat ride, you are sent up and down in a circular motion, and it really does feel like you're about to collide with the cars in front of you. And because of that, I will be giving the park an extra 1 point for Mixed, as it's not the most extreme flat ride. Then you also have the park's dark ride, which is Reese's Cup Fusion. And this is similar to Justice League Battle for Metropolis, as they're both shooting dark rides, but this one themed to Reese's. And this is a very solid shooting dark ride, and for that, I will be giving the park an extra 2 points for, making the score 31-26. One unique aspect of both these parks, that being the animals. As for Six Flags Great Adventure, you have Safari Off-Road Adventure, which at least at the time of recording is currently closed for refurbishment, but you'll get sent on a massive vehicle and you'll get to explore and feed all the various animals in Six Flags Great Adventure Safari. And as for Hersheypark, you have Zoomerica. Even though Zoomerica is a separate gate, it is included with your Hersheypark ticket, and you'll get to look at many different animals from across the world. And it is an extra upcharge to feed them, but you'll definitely have a great time just viewing the animals and having fun. And for that, I will be giving both parks an extra 2 points for their animals, making the score 33 to 28. And then moving on to a unique Hersheypark attraction, you have Hershey's Chocolate World. Now this is separate from Hersheypark, but it is free to enter. And you have various attractions such as a dark ride that shows you how chocolate is made, a 4D theater, and you can even make your own chocolate bars. Now note, not all these attractions are free, as the chocolate making dark ride, that's free, but if you want to make your own candy bar, that's an extra upcharge. Now along with that chocolatey goodness, you also have some amazing treats at Hersheypark. And the one I'm going to talk about here is easily their most iconic treat, and that being their king-sized milkshakes. Now these come in 3 different flavors: Hershey's Kisses, Hershey's, and Reese's. And I've had both the Hershey's and Reese's ones, and these are just amazing. And they can easily feed up to like 4 people, so they're just pure massive. And even though they are expensive, you can easily get 1, maybe 2, and you'll be perfectly fine. So even though these are like $15 a piece, they are totally worth it. And because of these 2 amazing options that Hersheypark offers that Six Flags Great Adventure can't, I will be giving Hersheypark an extra 6 points for both Hershey's Chocolate World and the king-size milkshakes. Final score, Hersheypark wins 34 to 33. Now the reason Hersheypark wins, just barely, is because both parks have amazing kosher collections, but Hersheypark overall just has many more experiences, as you have some amazing treats and experiences that Six Flags Great Adventure just can't compete with, like Hershey's Chocolate World. Now, another benefit to Hersheypark over Six Flags Great Adventure, it's generally the more cleaner park, and definitely takes care of its pride and definitely pays homage to Hershey's founder, Milton Hershey. And because of all that, if you can only visit one of these parks, I would choose to visit Hersheypark, even though Six Flags Great Adventure is a great park. And also remember, if you enjoyed this video, remember to like and share this video with anybody you know who'll be visiting the Mid-Atlantic states soon. And also remember to check out my video on how to have the best day ever at Hersheypark. And peace.